You are listening to Unfuck Your Mind with the real, raw, colorful, authentic, empowering, control profanity-loving human Zach Lyotis, soul activator, master key holder, and intergalactic elder. Zach loves to find lessons in adversity to advocate humanity one listener at a time. She also enjoys having fun along the way. Check her out at zachlyotis.com to see what she's up to. But for now, let's pass it off to Zach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unfuck Your Mind. I'm your host, Zach Lyotis, and in today's podcast, I have Priya Lakhi. Priya is a former death row defense attorney who hit rock bottom mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially. As she found herself locked in the prison of her mind, she had no choice but to face herself brutally, honestly, and painfully. She stumbled upon her psychic gifts and had a spiritual awakening that was the key to her freedom. Now, as a founder of Awaken Ananda, Priya uses her gifts to bridge the intellect with the intuition. As a purposeful life architect, Priya helps overwhelmed leaders and entrepreneurs who feel unfulfilled, stuck, or lost to make the best choices in all areas of their life using the sky as the beginning. Welcome, Priya, to the podcast.
Hi, it's happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here because just your bio alone, sometimes I get so stuck and words have a difficult time coming out of my mouth because spirit is just coming through my body and I'm just like so tongue-tied with a few things. I say, as I'm reading people's bios, I'm like, thank God I edit this because it sounds like I can't read half the time. But anyhow, that's just something I need to deal with and work through as I do more of these podcasts. But let's talk about where you were, a former death row defense attorney who hit rock bottom.
Yeah, so I was, I checked all the boxes I was supposed to check. I graduated high school, I went to college, I went to law school being a good Indian girl, raised in a traditional Indian family. The expectation was that I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer, and that was it. or maybe an engineer, but pretty much I was going to have a profession, and that profession was going to be one in which lots of money could be earned and lots of respect would be given. So I went to law school, and I wanted to be there because I really enjoyed arguing with my parents, and I thought that's what law school would be about. And it's there that I really was introduced to the various social justice causes in America. And I think that's actually where my own healing journey began, because I was left with no option but to be in this service to others category. In that I could have been a corporate lawyer sitting behind a desk and, doing contracts or something like that, but that didn't feel right. That didn't resonate with my soul. Although at that time, those probably aren't the words I would use. It just didn't click, right? It just didn't
click, yeah.
And so I decided I wanted to be a criminal defense attorney and be in a courtroom. And that led to finding a real passion to working with those that were facing the death penalty. And so I graduated law school in Ohio, and I moved to Atlanta and started my work here in the deep south of America, where we have a lot of issues in our criminal justice system.
That's crazy that you chose death row, though. Like that, when I read that, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what mind frame was she at to choose death row? Like, she must be seriously like so into like, the criminal justice one and for all, but just in general, like, where were you at that point that it's almost like that excitement of being in the courtroom, that drive, or that it's almost like that adrenaline, that's the word, the adrenaline just coming up?
I mean, there was certainly that, but here's what really happened. I think first year in law school, I got an internship, and the internship happened to be at a public defender's office, and they put me in the capital punishment or death penalty division.
Oh,
And they
wow.
said, this is where we need interns. And I said, okay, no problem. I was willing to go wherever the work was because I was an eager student and I wanted to learn. And I was assigned with a particular set of attorneys, and those attorneys, and I'm so grateful to them because they let me feel like I was part of the team, even though I was still in law school.
Yeah.
And through that experience, what I realized was quite simply, my clients are human.
Yes. Yes.
They deserve just as much as anybody else to have someone stand by them who believes in them and who provides them hope and who believes that they are more than the worst thing they have ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all are.
Mm-hmm.
And so my connection to the work really began as a human connection in which I was deeply called to be of service. And I knew not many people would sign up for the task of working with clients that had been considered to be the worst of the worst.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Something in me just felt a deep calling and a knowing that this is what I wanted to do. And so while, of course, it was exciting, it was more because I saw the human behind the number.
Yes.
And that, yeah, and that's really what drew me to the work.
Yeah, and you know what? I get that because I had to forgive someone that put me through hell, and I think he should be in prison. But at the same time, I'm like, he's human, he needs love, and what he did was obviously wrong, but I had to forgive that. And one of my clients is actually in prison. I talk to him quite frequently, and it's interesting because the way I saw him and when I first connected with him are two different people. You know, when I first started working with him, he was this angry man, just having a vengeance. And when I said to him, dude, I understand the anger you're going through. I understand, like, you may have not gotten the attention as a child. He says, I was adopted, all these things. And I just treated him like a human being, all because I watched this one video of a man forgiving his son's killer. And it changed my perspective on so much. Yeah. And so I have this client out there, and I work with him quite frequently, and he's in there for a serious offense, but he's coming out shortly. And he says to his people in prison, he says, you know, if it wasn't for Zach, I wouldn't know who I'd be right now. But she made me believe in myself.
Yeah.
So I get where you're coming from. I get that. Like, they are humans, but they, somewhere in their journey, there was a disruption in probably most likely childhood, most likely living in poverty, most likely wanting or needing attention. And then they ended up just on the wrong side of the road and became who they became. So, you know what, kudos to you to see something greater, because that the world right now, we're going through a lot of suffering because we see the negative rather than see the positive that comes out of it more than ever. Yeah. So kudos to you, man. Seriously, that's hard. That's some powerful, that's like powerful elder. I hear sage work, like total high priestess, total like power inside of you to deal with that. So kudos to you. So when did you find yourself going through this, you know, rock bottom of mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, spiritually?
Yeah. So the work, as you can imagine, is difficult.
Yeah.
Sometimes thankless, and you're working within you're trying to create justice within an unjust system. Right? There's lots of layers of our justice system that aren't working. They're just simply not working. And at some point, I found myself completely burnt out. Fighting and arguing for a living with prosecutors and with, you know, witnesses, and trying to hold space for healing and hope, because on both sides of a criminal case, there's a lot of hurt. Absolutely. A lot of hurt, right? And so you're trying to manage a lot of movement. And somewhere in there, you become so dedicated to the work that you do. And my colleagues that still do the work, I'm so incredibly in awe of what they do. They've been doing it for years. They're such dedicated souls. But in that dedication, you lose yourself sometimes if you're not careful. And that's what happened to me. You know, I worked and worked, and it was my passion. It was my calling. It was my mission. It was more than just a paycheck or a job. But I lost who I was. I let myself get depleted too much. There was no active self-care practice. Well, there was, but it involved a lot of tequila. Right. That didn't do much for me except want me to have more tequila. Yeah. So then I left the law, and I decided I was going to go start another job, and that job was to work in a family business. I'm actually not sure which was harder, death row defense attorney or family business.
Family business all the way. I get you. I've been in one of those.
I was like, wow, talk about fire, frying pan to fire. That's what I just did. But I needed to go through that because it still wasn't enough. Leaving the law still wasn't enough to make me stop in my tracks and recognize that I was depleted. So I had to go through even more crisis.
Yeah.
And through that crisis, I found myself in bed one day, unable to get out. Literally unable to get out of bed.
Yeah.
And I was completely drained. And I had, suffered immensely by choice at some point, to the point where my body said, enough already. And so I was stuck trying to figure out what had gone wrong. And that's when my true journey to what I do today started.
Interesting. Did you know you always had this gift inside of you? Did you use this gift previously? Or did you have to hit that rock bottom for that gift to awaken for you?
I think a little bit of both. I knew that I was a good relator with people. I knew that I could just understand what people were feeling without them having to tell me. And those were good skills as a lawyer. Yeah. Especially as a criminal lawyer where you have to talk to a lot of witnesses. So I thought, I'm just good at this. I didn't realize that what I was doing was reading energy and working through intuition, right? That was way too much out of my comfort zone for my logical lawyer brain. I mean, there has to be evidence, right? If you can't see it, it doesn't exist in my prior life.
Yes.
So I didn't know what it was, but what led me to start my healing journey, which took me to India actually, was intuition, was this voice inside of my head that I couldn't ignore that kept saying, go to India, go to India. So as I was lying in that bed, no one knowing what to do, and there was this voice in my head that just said, go to India. And I, of course, thought I was going crazy. I'm like, why would I go to India? I haven't been there since I was a kid. What am I going to go do there? But it was actually ultimately the listening to that voice that has radically transformed my life.
So what happened in India? This is like getting juicy now. I'm like, what happened in India?
So I eventually was able to garner enough strength to get out of bed.
For sure.
And my beautiful, loving parents said to me, take a break, we'll cover the bills, we'll take a break. And so I was so grateful for that. And so I thought I was going to go to India for, 2 to 3 weeks. Just get a tour, figure out just exactly what was going on, and get right back to my life. Even though I didn't love my life, it was still my life. And it made sense to me.
Yeah. And
going to India made zero sense to me. So I was filled with fear, but I knew I just had to do it. A year later is when I left India.
Wow.
Yeah.
A year.
A year later. when I came back to America. So all of 2017, I spent in India.
Sorry, that's so
right?
Unexpected, crazy.
Right? Totally. And to the point of where like I had an apartment. Like I didn't stop the mail. Like I wasn't expecting to not be home for a year. Like I was just going to do whatever people do in India, have that eat, pray, love, whatever. It was much deeper than that. It was my own healing journey that led me to, not only did I go to India, I went to probably every part of India, north, south, east, and west, and studied with amazing people, became a yoga teacher, meditated in caves, learned various types of energy healing, learned shamanism, all for my own healing. And through that process, it became very evident why my soul had chosen such a drastic rock bottom.
It's so interesting when we choose that rock bottom. And I've said this in many podcasts, is that my rock bottom was depression, and it hit me so many times. And every time it hit me, it was like, you're going through an awakening. I'm like, does it always have to feel this painful? And I was like, no, you make it feel this painful.
Yeah. And sometimes, through pain comes our greatest clarity.
Yes, the light shines so bright in that darkness, but until we have the courage to get up and take that leap, like you went to India, for me, it was just like I was looking for a job as a waitress. I did it for 20 years and no one would hire me. And then Spirit was like, maybe you should focus on doing the work for humanity than being a waitress again. And that's exactly what it was. And that's just a journey when you hit that rock bottom. So you're in India now for a solid year. You come back. You must be a total different person.
I was remarkably different. And so here's what happened. I came back to the same life and I was different.
Yeah.
And that was a whole nother set of issues.
Yes.
Because in India, I was in a beautiful bubble, loved and surrounded by people who were teaching me about spirit and ascension and awakening and, the Eastern philosophy and keys of knowledge were opening within me, and it all felt like in flow. And I came back to the US, which is a completely different energetic pattern.
Yeah.
And yet surrounded by the same people and the same situations that I had left, who didn't understand what had happened. Just didn't understand what had happened, because I pretty abruptly left and went to India, and then B, why I was gone for a whole year, and then C, oh, by the way, you've come back and you're all woo woo. Like, it's a pretty big,
that's a transition.
Right. It's a pretty even for me, but but for the people in my life that love me and my friends and my family and my partner, like it was so I came back. Huge. And I had to again readjust.
Yeah.
So there was the pre-India and there was the India, Priya, and then there was the post-India that was like, oh, okay, let me figure out now this meshing of the East and the West and the practical and the spiritual. And it was actually when I came back here that I actually realized that that's one of the gifts that I have, is to make the spiritual practical.
Yes.
Because that's what I had to do. I had to incorporate this beautiful healing journey into now the busyness of an American life.
Yes. It's so fun when you have to do that, right? Because you're just like, okay, how do you tell like a pitta that's on fire to slow down?
Yeah, exactly. Or to just even like, because I don't drink very much anymore. And so it's people are like, oh, you want to go for a drink? And my answer is like, no, I don't. but I'd love to take a walk with you now. And I'd love to, like, maybe go and sit in a park. And it's weird. It's hard, right? It's hard for people to adjust to a new or a different version of who they expect you to be.
Yes. I totally get that, because I was just at my friend's house over the weekend, and no word of a lie, I think she asked me if I wanted a drink 1,000 times. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm fine. And she's like, where's your container? You usually carry something with you. I'm like, yeah, it's water and it's right in my bag. And she's like, but are you sure you don't want like a vodka and 7? I'm like, I don't even like vodka. She's like, are you sure you don't want a glass of wine? I know you like. I'm like, no, I just don't feel like drinking anymore.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it shifted. Life shifted.
Life shifts. Yeah.
Minute by minute. Literally minute by minute. Yeah, so it's been an incredible couple of years, and now I get to do the same work that I did in India, and I get to provide that same level of care and attention to other women that are going through similar issues. Except you don't have to go to India for a year to get the knowledge that I learned, and the skills and the tools that I learned. Yeah.
Yeah, you brought that wisdom back with you to share with the world, which is such a beautiful thing, right?
It feels really beautiful, and it seems really empowering, And what I realized in India, what's really, so the full circle moment to me in India was that while my clients were obviously they didn't have a choice whether they were in prison or not, many of us voluntarily put ourselves in a prison.
Yes. You couldn't have said that any better.
And that's what I had done. I'd put myself in this box that I just didn't know how to get out of. And so instead of getting out of the box, I just became more and more miserable in the box.
Yeah. Instead of kicking the box down.
Right. And recognizing, right, that the door was unlocked the entire time. I just didn't walk out.
Yep.
That to me was really the full circle moment for me in India was I actually am no longer the victim. I am the empowered one.
Amen to that, sister.
Yeah.
Amen to that. So this all happened in 2017. So just really recently.
Just really recently. And it was, my soul put me on an accelerated course, because I think I had been at this threshold, frankly, a couple of times before, and I had ignored the threshold to step into my spiritual side.
Yes.
I just ignored it. So I was always into personal development. But really what I'm truly into is spiritual development.
Yeah, and they're two total different things.
They're two total different things. They are. And so, yeah. And so now I've opened up a business, and I have clients, and I help amazing women who no longer have to ask the question, what if? I help them get an answer to that question. And we help come up with a plan of, like, how do you do it? How do you actually step by step create a life that you love? So it doesn't feel so vague.
Yeah. And there's excitement and there's fun in it, and you're not stuck in unhappiness. And this is what I love about what you said. It doesn't feel so vague, is because Spirit has said to me so many times, Zach, have fun, make people laugh out there. Like, allow yourself to be colorful, allow yourself to be who you are. Like, yeah, have a sense of humor. Sometimes people don't get it. And I'm just like, don't you get that? Like, that's hilarious. Like, I like it. Like,
myself up over here.
I love
that.
And because people are so stiff, they're so serious. And when you're so serious with life, like, think of it. You were serious being a former attorney. That was a serious job. You had your fun was tequila because it was your escape.
Right. And it was low level transcendence, right? You can have you go to an ashram, you find drugs, or you find God. Either way. You go to the hospital, you find drugs, you find God. You go to a bar, you find drugs, you find God. Like, so tequila was like, I was still trying to move beyond my existence.
Yes.
I was just doing it with the wrong tools for me at the time. And so now, what I'm still moving beyond, but I'm doing in a way that feels high vibration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're having fun doing it. That's the thing. That's the whole part of this process. That's what life is about. Having fun, laughing at life.
Totally. I think there has to be a daily practice of joy. And I'll tell you, I still struggle with it at times, right? Because my personality of being a lawyer serves me well. Mm-hmm. But I can also find myself still in patterns of working and wanting perfection and wanting to be a people pleaser. And I still find myself doing that. The difference now is I can almost laugh and say, oh, that's an interesting personality trait that I have this lifetime. I'm just gonna work through that. But I no longer have that self-critical voice that somehow I'm a shitty person because I did it.
Yeah.
And that makes the difference for joy, right? Because then it allows more joy in your life.
It does. And it's so funny because every day, like I was doing it today too, I usually sit with the radio on, but obviously can't do it now while I'm talking to you. And I just will get up out of being in such a deep transient state writing. My computer moved to the side just on its own. And I'll get up and start dancing. And I'll just kill myself laughing. I think if there was a camera in here, people would think this girl is like one flew off the cuckoo's nest. Like, seriously, like even my niece sometimes looks at me like, she's like, why are you doing jumping jacks? I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like doing jumping jacks. Like, I just feel like jumping around. I just feel like dancing. Right. But that I find when I do that, it's like I shift something out of the way that didn't even have time or room to come into that space. I just got up and did something that brought more laughter and joy and happiness.
Right. And then you feel amazing at the end of it, right?
Yeah, because you're killing yourself laughing thinking one flew off the cuckoo's nest. That's why.
I'm going to double dog dare you to post that on your Facebook, a video of you dancing.
I do it on Instagram as a story all the time. I'm spinning, so it's always there. People always kind of, some people are like, seriously, like you that nutty? I'm like, that's just my day. That's just me hanging out with spirit. I always say that. I hang out with spirit, and if they move the computer aside and jump up, I just start doing it. So let's talk about East versus the West right now, because you had a year. This is all fresh. 2017 coming into 2018, now fresh into 2019, East versus West. What were some of the I don't want to say challenges, because it's really not a challenge, it's just a transition, but what were some transitional things that you felt were difficult, or just a way of looking at things to make that transition from East to West? I guess challenges is the word. Challenges.
I teach a lot about Eastern philosophy for the Western mind. And I think one of the biggest challenges is even accepting that we are spiritual beings. The East very easily talks about the concept of the universe and energy and healing. And the West, I think we're still having a hard time coming around to those concepts. And so it's so much easier in India for me to explain what I do with energy work and with coaching work, and to have it be quote unquote normal, versus in the East where people are still struggling with, what are you trying to sell me? What is this? What is this shit you're talking about? I'm fine. I'm just going to pop some pills and I'll be fine. So I think that for me was the biggest hurdle when I came back, was even trying to explain the magic of what I had been through.
Oh, I love the way you said that. The magic I've been through. It's true. It's magical.
Yeah. It's magical.
It's so magical. So who is your ideal client other than those that just want to find a piece of who they truly are? Do you work with men and women?
I work with a few heart-centered men, but my ideal client is a professional, ambitious woman who is, again, checked all the boxes, done all of the things that she should do, And she's finally come to a point where she's realizing that what she should do isn't what she wants to do. And so that intersection of should and want, where people know there's something bigger, where the box isn't enough, where there's more to life and they want to learn how to live it. And so I really help women who actually by all outside experiences seem to have it all, but on the inside feel empty.
I see. Yeah. There's a lot of raising that vibration is really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are some little tidbits you could give to women that are thinking of getting on this journey of spiritual awakening? What are some of your tidbits on that?
I think the most underused skill that women have is our intuition. And so I would encourage each of us to try to have a daily practice of stillness, even if it's 2 minutes in the car or on the subway or on the toilet. I mean, just not having the phone in hand, not trying to talk to someone, not going through a mental to-do list, but just stillness to see what arises.
Yeah.
Because I think, for example, for me, I didn't even know it was my intuition. I thought I was playing tricks. It was just my mind talking to me, telling me things. I just thought I was smart enough and I just knew what to do versus that I was being guided. Because I wasn't still to recognize that there's a voice, and that voice is something bigger than who I could possibly ever be.
I love that. I always, I've said this, and we said this in podcasts before, while you're on the toilet, we always say shitting. Clear the shit from your mind as well.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
Right? Clear physical and emotional shit that you're holding on to.
That's right.
Because
you can't hear the inner voice. If you're constantly clouded in that, it's really hard to hear. And I've had women say this to me, well, I don't have an inner voice. Bullshit. Everyone does. There's nothing in me that isn't in you. Nothing.
Exactly.
And there's nothing in you that isn't in me because we're actually all one. That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, okay, Priya, you and I could sit for hours. I could feel this already. We could sit for hours on this one, but it's true though. The more you cloud that up, think of the sky. Like, exactly what you said, I have everyone using the sky as the beginning, because if you look at the sky, it's usually blue, but it's clouded up now. We have clouds. You can't see the blue. The sun can't shine through. Right. Once those clouds part, the sun shines, the heat shows up. Guess what? Your wisdom, your intuition, that little voice inside you has space to come in. So that cloud in your head needs to part. I always think of Moses, in the water, parting the water. I did a big trick to my retreat people, telling them I'm going to part the waters, and they're all staring at the water going, is she really going to part the water? And I killed myself laughing, because it's like, okay, I could tap into Moses, but I'm really, at the end of the day, not going to part the water, people.
But you could if you wanted to.
I could if I wanted to. If I really, really tapped into it, I'm sure I could. But I was just, it was a funny moment. But I love that you said that. Give yourself that 2 minutes of stillness. What would the younger Priya say to her older self today?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, if it was the critical voice, it would have said, get your fucking shit together. But if it was the loving and wise and powerful goddess that I know exists inside of me, it would have said, don't be afraid of your own light.
Yeah, a lot of people are afraid of that.
Don't be afraid of shining brightly, because the world needs you and you need the world.
Deep and true. Deep it is. Like, you can feel that in your heart. If someone didn't feel that in your heart, they have to rewind that and listen to that again. Seriously, that's deep. Because the world, we all need each other. That's why we all came here this time around, because we all are in it to win it somehow.
That's right. And it's not a one-way exchange. I need the world as much as the world needs me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And closing myself out from that is what I did for a long time.
Yeah. And you know what the interesting thing was when you were saying to shine your light? I just heard spirit saying to me, she was shining her light when she was a criminal defense lawyer, but she didn't realize it because it's a different light that you were shining.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
you were always shining your light. You just never realized to the extent that you're shining now you're bright, girl. Now you're shining, you know? You were still shining previously.
Crazy, perhaps.
It's all good. It's all good. So what does spirituality mean to you?
Spirituality to me means that I have all of the answers within me and I am my own guru.
Amen.
It's as simple and as complicated as that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you part those clouds, the guru comes out, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That we are the ones we've been waiting for. We have all of the wisdom within us. It's only a matter of whether we believe it's there.
Yeah. It's oh, I love that. You know, you just triggered my teacher's voice inside my head. And he said to me once, he goes, you don't know. He's like, do you do this? He says to me. And I said, I don't even know what you're doing. How do I know what like to do that? He goes, you need to relearn these things.
Mm-hmm.
He tells me so many things about myself. I have no idea. And he goes, you need to relearn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's true. We need to relearn who we are in the essence of our divine birthright, or our essence of our divine light that we came to the world to be, because it was stomped on with all the other beliefs and systems and parents and trauma and drama and wounds and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an unbecoming, right? It's not a becoming. It's an unbecoming.
So true.
And then I think, and I think the biggest thing for me too is when you realize that wisdom within you, it doesn't just mean you go totally off kilter on some woo-woo spiritual journey, but that same inner knowledge and knowing practically impacts my life every day. How I show up in relationship, how I show up as a leader, how I show up for myself, whether I pay my bills on time, what I'm putting into my mouth and eating on a daily basis. It is an absolute practical application of my divinity that opens up when I access that wisdom within me.
Yeah, so true. So true. You know, and I love that some people think that being spiritual is so woo-woo, and I've said this to someone before. It's actually really practical. You get practical practices to work on a daily basis, and people don't realize that because, you know, I've been in my space cadet for many years, and I enjoyed being in that space cadet area in my life. But I remember the earth asked me to ground myself and come back to earth. And I was like, but I don't want to. And I had to. I had no choice.
Yeah.
She pulled me down and said, we need you here, not up there.
Yeah.
So I get that. And when I came down and felt the earth after, I think it was 2.5 years of being in woohoo world, and I was like, the tools that were given to me by the earth to put all my teachings into practice was profound.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. Because we're human as much as we are divine. And so we can't forget that we're here to have a human experience.
Yes. Yeah. I did for 2.5 years, probably even long. I landed. The spaceship has landed.
The beautiful part is you can always take off again. Now you know how, right?
Yeah. Every day I take off. Every morning I take off for a couple of hours and go to space and come back and say, all right, you're human now. Get to work.
Right.
Whatever it means to you.
I love it.
Yeah. I love this conversation we had. Like, this is so incredible because it feels so fresh but so old for you, even though like people realize you could have an awakening moment at any time of your life.
Yes. Yes. There's no right time for an awakening.
No. And you could have thousands of awakenings like I went through in your life. People go, when did you have an awakening moment? I'm like, 15, 18, 21, 35, 41. Like,
Right.
you have these awakenings all the time. It's just a matter of listening to that voice and following through and not thinking you're flying off the cuckoo's nest.
Absolutely. Which is where that stillness gets cultivated, right? Because otherwise you might miss it.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for all the wisdom you share. Thank you for your presence and your divinity, because at the end of the day, we are all in this together and raising conscious awareness for humanity. And at the end of the day, we are the mirror reflection of who we become and the person that's in front of us. So thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for taking that trip to India. Like, seriously, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me and allowing me to share my journey. And thank you for the light that you bring into the world and the knowledge and the wisdom that you're helping to spread. Because as you said, when you raise your consciousness, it allows me to raise mine.
Amen.
So together, we can bring love and light to this planet. I know it.
Amen. One human at a time. You're welcome. Thank you. So if anyone feels totally aligned and needs to work with Priya to get to your happy place, that place where you're not burnt out and you've checked off all the boxes in your life and you've done it the way your parents wanted you to, now it's your turn to do it the way that voice inside you is doing. Come meet the East as you live in the West and really feel that part of you grow and become so embodied in that place of knowingness, that higher consciousness, that realm that may feel really unfamiliar to the ego, but yet so familiar to the spirit. All of Priya's social handles are in the show notes below. Connect with her and start raising that vibration in order to see the beauty, the divinity, and your sacred birthright of who you truly are. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Awakened. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Wise Woman Wednesday. And we look forward to having you again next week. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Unfuck Your Mind. Head over to iTunes and leave your 5-star review and comment to get uprising the charts so we can get this incredible wisdom into more ears worldwide. In the show notes, you'll find all affiliate links to what we've mentioned in the podcast or products Zach loves to use. Until we connect again, unfuck 1% of your thoughts and watch how your life shifts.